Work session on this Tuesday, August the 18th, 2020, and welcome all those who have joined us here. We have 4 of our council members here, and we excuse Council Member Anderson, who is camping at Moon Lake. So I'm sure it's a lot cooler there than here. So we welcome you, those who have joined us here of staff, and we have some special guests this evening. We'll start this evening by our Community Service Award we have, and I will turn the time over to Council Member Lamone to
Introduce them?
make the presentation.
Maybe we could have her come to the mic up here.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love that. David, do you want to bring your family up? So we have the Hartle family coming up, and David is going to, I'll let him introduce his family, but a few years ago, David just lives up the street from me, but he and his family started what's become a tradition here in Pleasant Grove with the Star on the Mountain. And I'll, again, let David kind of give the history and about why and how this all got started, because it wasn't with the star. I think it was a different design, right? The bat?
Well, no, the first one was the Big Dipper.
The Big Dipper, that's right. And I'll let him explain that. But he's done these different designs on the hillside, just kind of up by Grove Creek Canyon, and it's just been literally a light in the community and something people now look forward to just about for every holiday, Strawberry Days, Halloween, Christmas. And we give him an idea, and he just runs with it or comes up with it on his own. And so he's taking requests, I'm sure, or not, because we're getting a little crazy with this, but it's a lot of time and effort for his family to do this. We've done one GoFundMe, and otherwise he's paid for out of his own pocket to buy the lights, and it's an awesome thing he and his family have done. They've done it together as a family. So, David, we want to present you and your family, you and your wife Tandy, and then your children as well, with our Community Service Award. And this says an appreciation for your dedicated service to Pleasant Grove City. It's been signed by the mayor. So we just want to present this to you and let you take a few minutes and just tell us about you and your family and why you decided to do this, and want to thank you again for how much you've done for our community.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so a couple of years ago, I had some lights in my yard, and I thought that, I wonder if you can see them from up on the hill up high. And so I went and I did a Big Dipper up on the hill. And we were over at our neighbor's house and walked out at night and looked up there and like, wow, we can actually see it. And it's kind of cool. And all of us were at home and watching Sid's Facebook page, and all the people in the community talking about it and loving it, and they had so much fun seeing the Big Dipper. And then the next day, someone in the community contacted me and said that someone's son had passed away and the night before, and that his nickname was Little Dipper, and that up on the mountain meant so much to them. And I thought, wow, if I can do something up on the hill that means this much to people, I want to keep trying to do it. And so I just had 9 lights to start, and for my birthday, I asked for lights for my birthday and for Christmas. And so I got the lights most of them from my brother, and I bought some, and went and did a pumpkin on the mountain with my daughter, and then did the Christmas star. And the Christmas star, I was only going to leave it up for about a night or two, and then a lot of people asked if I could leave it up for longer, and so it ended up being for a lot of the month of December. And then after that, I saw how important it was to the community, how people loved seeing the lights up there. It brought a lot of people together. It was something positive, especially this year, where I did a competition for the little kids to come up with a design, and then I put the winner up on the mountain, the winning design. And that was right at the start of COVID, when everybody was, newly out of school, nothing to do. A lot of people worried about getting sick, and it was kind of a fun diversion for the families to work on that, and people to vote on the designs, and did something for graduation. The strawberry for Strawberry Days was wonderful. I think that's my wife's favorite design, and so we're excited to put that up again next year. So it's just been a whole lot of fun doing the lights. My wife is huge help. Every time I go up on the mountain, I'm up there moving the lights and stuff, and she's down below in the car for 3-4 hours at a time saying, no, you're wrong, you got to move it. And
So it's kind of like a mapped out coordinates almost of what you guys, you got to plan it out. And
yeah, so I map it out on a grid paper, and then I also have a light bright, which is kind of a funny way to do it, but just to see how it'll look in lights. And then sometimes I'll go over to the park, hill park across the street and practice it, or else I've got a little hill in my backyard, and just to see what it'll look like before we're ready to haul it up on the mountain. A lot of the designs are 40 or 60 lights, and so it's a lot of big backpacks, and so my son and daughter come up and help, and so does my twin brother, and haul those up and down.
And David, when you say lights, describe the type of lights that you use.
I use solar lights. We get them out of China. They're pretty bright. They're about 300 lumens each, and then just facing towards the city. In the summer, spring, fall, when there's more sun, they'll last until morning. In the winter, sometimes they may shut off after an hour if it snowed all day. But they're individual lights all placed up there. You might notice with some of the pictures of, like the bat, for example, from down at the high school, it looked like a nice wide bat. But then from pictures from Drew Armstrong from his drone, it looked like a tall moth. But it's all the perception of looking up. And so that's one of the really hard things in planning it, is I have to have, it's about 1.8 feet high to look the same as 1 foot in width for distancing. And then there's all the hills up there, and there's sagebrush that I got to dodge, and some of the shrubs up there. A lot of times my wife will be, you need to move it down 1 foot. And I'm like, I can't. There's a brush there, and so there's a lot that goes into it.
So this isn't like you just show up and throw the lights up there. This is a lot of coordination and planning and hiking and.
Yeah, it can take days of going up there. Hauling them all. What we'll first do, we'll haul them all up there and get them up there and pile and set out. And then we'll go out and I'll have all my coordinates and maps drawn out, and I'll start laying it all out. And then once it's dark and they start to come on, then Tanny can see from below what it looks like. And most of the time it needs a whole lot of adjustment. The bat, I think, was the hardest yet, and that took 3 nights to get it right. So that's why the first 2 nights it kind of looked funny.
What's been your largest design? Was that the strawberry?
The strawberry.
And how big was that?
About 500 feet tall and 200 feet wide, I think.
Wow.
So it's been a whole lot of fun for our family, and it's great because I love to go up with my kids, Kenzie, Camden, to come up and help me up there. So we really enjoy doing it, and we'll keep doing it. We're looking for ideas for Halloween, Sid.
That's the wrong question.
I already have some ideas. Well, I contacted him for school. I'm like, hey, can you do an apple light for back to school? And he's like, I'm getting knee surgery. So that was the only reason, he was out of commission, and I just need to stop, because I could do one for every month. And I know this is this is easy for me to be like, oh, do this design. And then it takes your family 10 hours. And so I'm not doing the hard work. I'm just do this, do that. Because it's been so awesome in our community. But not just ours. Across the lake, they can see it, out in Saratoga. And people come literally from miles to come and see this design that you guys have put. So just know that you really have affected. I know when the little boy passed away from being hit by the car, down on State Street, that you had a special light for him. Mm-hmm. And so I think you've touched a lot of people, probably more than you know. And just the feedback and response that we've gotten is huge. And we want to be known for things like this in our community. So just thank you to you and your family for the time and effort, because this is a lot of work, and we just really, really appreciate it. This is such a cool thing to have in Pleasant Grove, really, really special for us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And we love doing it, and we'll continue doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just add, we do have an acrylic award. We just hadn't received it yet, so we'll be dropping it by your house when we get it. So something you can put on your kitchen table.
Yeah, David, is there anything that we can do to help you as a community in this effort? Do you need more help up on the mountain when you go? Can we put the word out? Can we help in any way?
I'll let you know it's project specific.
Okay.
It's always nice to have some extra backpacks along as I go.
Okay.
Hey, can we have them get a picture with the certificate? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
can we get your family? Sorry, Hartle family, can you guys come back up and I'll take a picture?
Well, social distance.
Do you want to be a part of the picture, Sid? And we'll take it.
Or maybe they stand there and we stay seated. Yeah, just come up here and
Right in front of us, right there.
Look at me first.
Yes, please.
Yeah, you guys are fine.
Yeah. Okay, we're behind you, so we're good.
Thank you.
Guys. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, we now move to item number 2 in our presentation by Envision Utah. And Scott, would you introduce that?
I'm going to let Envision Utah come up and kind of explain who they are and what their background is. But part of what they do is they are looking out in the future of Utah County and what we need to prepare for. So they're going to talk about, I think there's 6 different disciplines, but one of them is housing, one of them is transportation, things like that. So things that we need to have discussions on and prepare for the future, and their help looking for input and things to put all that together. So with that, we'll turn it over.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight. I really appreciate your time on the agenda. It's important to me to get a chance to speak to you. Well, I'm here to talk about Valley Visioning. My name's Ryan Beck. I am with Envision Utah, but I'm not just, but I also have partners who aren't here tonight that I should equally, say they had a huge part in this. Most of all, the Association of Utah County Chambers, including the Pleasant Grove Linden Chamber, your chamber, but also UVU, BYU are kind of the key partners in this. But what this really is a chance to look into the future. We had a 2050 time horizon, and kind of the idea we're looking at is by 2050, Utah County is going to double in population and add another 1 million residents by 2065. So a chance to step back, see where we're going, and do some listening to the public. And that's exactly what we did in phase 1, is we went out and we listened. This project has been going for about 2 years now. But we went out and we listened to the public. We had in Pleasant Grove, we had a workshop in your high school cafeteria. I recognize some faces here, so thank you for attending. But we also did a phase 1 survey where we got about 2,800 people to weigh in, and then we, throughout the county, went out and did a bunch of these public workshops. I'm actually going to come back on that one. And at the workshops, we laid out maps in front of people. So we said, hey, this is the population. You're going to double in population by 2050. Where do we house these people? Where do they work? Things like that. We gave them place types and markers to draw transportation improvements, and we let them design the future. So we went out and we collected 72 of these maps, and I don't have time to go through everything we heard, but one thing we asked them to identify was city centers, and you can see that Pleasant Grove, sure enough, got its fair share of the pie, got a city center identified. On this other side, you can see quarter-acre lots, and that pretty much follows where there's available land. For the most part, Pleasant Grove's built out quite a bit of their available land, but Eagle Mountain, Payson, places like that have quite a bit of land to develop yet. So sure enough, it followed that way. We also, from what we heard, we put together priority working groups, experts on housing, transportation, air quality, agriculture, water quality and quantity, and then workforce. And we really let them help out because they were the experts, help out with what we put in our scenarios, which was phase 2. We put together 5 different scenarios. We took those out. We had 11,000 people weigh in on those scenarios for phase 2. We went out and did another round of public workshops. And let me just explain those scenarios. I don't have time to go through all of the topics, as Scott mentioned, just because I'm cognizant of time. But let me go through one. Scenario A, and this is what we asked the public, should we grow as we've grown for the last 20 years? Project that forward into the future. Scenario B was about organized centers and growth occurring in these centers near high-capacity transportation. Scenario C was about westward growth. We saw on those maps a lot of growth heading into Cedar Valley. We tried to model that with transportation and land use and got the impacts of that. And then scenario D, what if we grow south between Provo and Santaquin? And then scenario E was about accommodating that growth in existing urban areas, places that already have infrastructure. And these are just some graphics, and I'm kind of looking on this right side, existing development in the pale yellow, new development in the orange there, and this was past trends, and just kind of look at how this urban footprint kind of grows and shrinks as different development patterns. So that's past trends. That's our centers scenario, scenario B. That's the westward growth, where we put more growth in the Cedar Valley. See a lot more growth in scenario D going south. So if you think about things like this, you know, think about where the water projects need to go to. What if we grow down here and we develop this? What happens to our agriculture? You know, it's questions like that that we're trying to answer with these scenarios. Urban infill. So we asked 11,000 people this, and there's two things actually going on here. In the blue is that 11,000 people, how they weighed in. We also went ahead and used Lighthouse to do a random sample survey to verify that, make sure our survey technique was correct. And you can see for the most part, they line up pretty well. But the support being for the centers style development, everyone gets a little bit of slice of the pie. People saw growth going westward towards Eagle Mountain. We heard a lot of people say we'd like to protect that agriculture land down south. We like to preserve the character. We like to preserve what's going on down there. So maybe we grow towards Eagle Mountain, not so much south. And we also saw quite a bit of support for that infill scenario. Now, as Scott mentioned, I have similar survey results on transportation, on water, on housing. Happy to share those with you, but I am being cognizant of time. So I'm going to kind of give you the high level vision, which is still in draft form, so if you do have comments. And these are just the draft overall goals. We still have very specific goals for housing, specific goals for agriculture, and then we have strategies to back those up. But at a high level, it's about providing convenient transportation choices. It's about supporting housing options. It's about open space and recreational opportunities. It's about agriculture. It's about managing our water. It's about educating our kids. And it's about clean air. These are the things we heard about. These are the things that the goals focus on looking towards the future. Now, let me just, with this map, Envision Utah, let me just say we have no jurisdiction. We have the power to influence people, but we know that this jurisdiction lies within the city, and we don't want to take away any of that local decision. You know, we believe that locals make the best decisions. They know what's going on the ground, and they're in tune, and that's what we think too. So, in no means do we want to take anything away from Pleasant Grove or any of the communities. They're all unique, and they're all great communities, and I think that's mostly what we heard is that Utah County is a great place. Let's keep it that way. So. With that, we did identify, and this map is very cartoonish on purpose to my previous point about control being with Pleasant Grove. So it's a 20,000-foot view, and we didn't want to zoom in on purpose. So with that, there is a city center identified in Pleasant Grove. We did talk to your planning staff and reviewed this with them a week ago, 2 weeks ago or so.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago.
Yep. So. With that, if you have any questions or want to know where we're going or any thoughts, happy to do my best to answer them.
And he went through that pretty quick. If there's some other things you want him to touch on a little bit more in depth, we do have some time.
Council, anything else?
I don't have any.
You know, some of us have seen this a few times, and we appreciate, you know, there was a lot of work and thought and research done in this, and we appreciate that. And, you know, we're kind of a little bit nervous about where the valley's going to go, but we know where Pleasant Grove's going to go. Like you say, we're just about built out here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that west side is going to be interesting.
It will be, but you're in good hands. I think you guys got it under control. Pleasant Grove's a great place, so I'm not too concerned.
So it's,
Brian?
What are your thoughts on a bridge over Utah Lake?
Well, let me.
it's in the
Yeah,
master
I've seen it a
plan.
few times.
In fact, there was two.
Oh, I didn't know there was two.
So
But
this
they're really
is,
just going back to one now.
we did see, you can see the roads over here, on the roads. We did see a lot of people identify it, and we have deferred to MAG on this as well. And you're right, it is in the regional transportation plan. Funding's a little bit up in the air, which, what do you do without funding?
What is the estimated cost on the bridge?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would imagine in the billions. So when you start to say B, you start, I don't even, it's hard
stop.
for, I don't even know. I don't even know what a billion is, right? It's like, but we did see it in this, and we did see a lot of people, mostly from Saratoga Springs, because it would serve them really well. They not only said roads across, but also if we're going to build a bridge, we might as well put some public transportation across that thing as well. So, but, yeah.
It's in that Trans 50 plan. That,
Yeah, right.
Yep.
And where is this available if the public has questions or wants to take a look?
Anyone at Envision Utah, just envisionutah.org. You can contact any of us, and happy to respond and do our best to answer questions.
Right.
Ryan, what's your next steps then? What's left?
We will incorporate the comments. We're going around to all the city councils, and we're incorporating comments. We will put together a draft document, probably circulate it one more time, and then we'll do some sort of launch. I'd like to say launch party, but they don't like big groups meeting right now, so it'll probably be some sort of online something, but, and then we'll send it out to,
So you send it out to the communities, and then the communities kind of decide how they want to use that in their planning? Is that generally how it works?
that's exactly right. We have, we have the power of influence, but no jurisdiction. Some cities will use it as a data point, as they make a decision in meetings just like this. Some will use it as a data point, some will disregard it, and some will follow it pretty closely. So we'll leave it in your hands. So,
So if you have any comments that come to you in the next week or so, just let me know. I can get them to Ryan and make sure they incorporate that in their decision-making.
thank you for time tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you coming this evening. We'll now move to item number 3, a follow-up discussion on our funding of capital projects.
Scott, before you start,
Yeah.
question,
Okay.
this says supplemental, are these items scheduled to be approved, or you found money for them, or they're items that we can throw into approved?
So this is a recommended list of items to be funded with the COVID money and with the capital money that we have. If the council gives us the thumbs up on this list, then eventually we'll bring this back with a budget amendment to, officially allocate the money. But in a lot of ways, we can start the process of ordering an ambulance or doing some of these things that we need to do. But again, because it's a recommendation, if there are things that you would like to have unfunded or funded more, or if there's something else that's come to your mind that you would like to, that's not on this list, again, we can have that discussion. But what this is when we met a couple weeks ago, we were having discussion. At the time, the missing puzzle piece we didn't have 2 weeks ago was what we were going to be able to use our COVID money for. We had some things that we hoped we would be able to use it for, and we've gone to a point now of saying, okay, here's what we feel comfortable funding with COVID. And that is the column on the far right of the items. So we have an ambulance, we have a restroom remodel at the rec center, we have restrooms out at the pickleball courts, we have a pavilion out at the Veterans Park as we expand that. We have an upstairs restroom, the restroom remodel is the library, and then we also have an additional upstairs restroom we're going to put in the rec center. That's $12,500. We'll remodel the front area of the rec center and then use some of this COVID money for additional dumbbells so that we have less touching with what we have. So once all those items were deemed COVID, from our perspective as a city, that freed up additional. It really allowed us to fund everything on the list that the department heads had asked for. So we did sit down. We sat down, Denise and I, individually with each department head, went over their list, had them prioritize their list, and then last week we brought this what you see here in front of the department heads to see if there was any questions or concerns with how the things were prioritized and what we wanted to do. With the fact that we were able to fund everything, the prioritization, I mean, we still prioritize within departments, but that's as far as we took it.
So there was nothing on this one that wasn't on the first one.
I think we removed one vehicle. There was a request for a vehicle from a department that they were under the assumption that we could get it under COVID. So we removed that off of that.
Okay.
I think that was the only thing we removed from our discussions. Was
so-
there something else?
Well,
Cindy?
the other thing is the engineering meeting and sidewalk.
Oh.
We decided to keep for that out of,
Or using Class C money for
Oh, I
that.
see. So everything else you can pay for by shifting the rest of it to
Yeah,
COVID.
so $631,000 in COVID projects, $682,000 of general fund. Now, our budget was right around 650. We feel comfortable to push that up to 680 just so we can get everything funded that was requested in that
And you're
sense.
comfortable with the 630, that all of those will be approved through?
No, I'm confident that we can do this. We don't, and this is just the caveat with COVID, and I want the council to understand this because, and this has been part of my frustration with this money, is I don't have anybody I can turn to for pre-approval. I would wish the federal government had an auditor I could call and say, here's what we want to do. Before we spend this, give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. I don't have that person. Now, the county is somebody that can advise us, but we can choose to do what we want. So as I talked about 2 weeks ago, as we look at some of these things, we're sending them off to the county so that I can have a second set of eyes that says, okay, Scott, we think you're heading in the right direction. But ultimately, as a city, we're going to be on the hook for this. And so if we're going to get an ambulance with COVID funds, and 3 years down the road when we get audited, if they come back and say, you can't use COVID funds, we now have to come up with $250,000 of general fund money to pay for that. So there is risk involved, but as we talk with other cities, as we talk with the county, we're trying to get a comfort level as to where we're at. So what we have on here, we have a general sense at a comfort level, but we have to understand that some auditors eventually going to walk in and say, I don't know where you guys connected the dots here, but I'm not seeing it. So we have restrooms out at the pickleball courts, and we also have a pavilion. And if the auditor comes back and says you can't do that, then I'm going to make sure we have funds set aside of our park impact fees or other things just to backstop it just in case. The ambulance is a little different. That would need to be general fund money. So if that happens 3 years down the road, then we'd probably have to take it out of our general fund balance. There's $2.4 million in there. We might have to take $250,000. But we need the ambulance anyway. And so our recommendation is to proceed and to do this with the understanding that if something does fall apart through the auditing process, again, I'm trying to vet these the best I can on the front end, but ultimately we have to make a decision. So that if for some reason something happens on the back end with the audit, that we have a way to fund these. So the big ticket items, the ambulance, the restroom, and like I said, the restroom and the pavilion. I mean, those items, if those end up not passing muster, we have a way to fund those, but it would be going into the reserve account or future park impact fees that we'll be collecting when that time comes.
I like it, Scott.
So does everybody understand that with the COVID money? Every city, I just got a phone call from a city manager yesterday saying, okay, Scott, what are you guys doing? Like, I'm not sure what we can or can't do. And so every city is really a little bit gun shy because nobody wants to have to pay this back on the back end. But again, there's not a clearinghouse. There's nobody we can go to get the pre-approval, which I wish we did.
Scott, are you going to go through these, or we just, if we have some questions?
Yeah,
on a
just
few
if
of
you
them?
have questions. We've gone through them a couple times, so if you have questions, we'll answer them.
Could
Quick
we,
questions. Go ahead.
go ahead, Eric.
So the first one is the clock tower.
Uh-huh.
Again, we threw out some ideas maybe of not fixing the actual clock and maybe putting up some, I don't know what we're gonna
Yeah, so
call
that's
them.
the
That's where
5,000.
we're
That's the
going.
5,000,
To
okay.
fix the clock was 15,000.
Okay,
So we
so,
pulled 10,000 out of that by doing the panels.
and then my other big one, and maybe we can ask Drew, or maybe you've already talked to him, on the paramedic training. I mean, my concern there is, have we done this in the past, right? Or are we setting ourselves up, right? I mean, we have to be careful. I mean, that's a lot of money for training, and if they leave in a year and a half, 2 years, right? Where are we at, right?
So here's the concept that we're working on, working with Chief Thomas, and if Chief Thomas wants to come up and kind of explain a little bit, but this is the equivalent of sending somebody to the police academy. So in certain circumstances, we've paid for somebody's time and to go through post. So, and we just had an officer recently that we paid to have that happen. And then they signed an agreement saying that if they leave before 3 years, then they need to pay us back for a prorated cost of what we invested into them to go through the academy, which happened. They paid us back the money because they were here a year and then they took another job. So we would work something out. My preference is that if we do have firefighters that are going to go through paramedic training, that they need to pay some out of their own pocket. The city doesn't foot 100% of the bill, but maybe we foot part of the bill.
But is that what that cost is, 100%?
That's 100%.
So I guess that goes to the point that if we send someone and we end up being a training ground, then they'll come here and get their paramedic training and then they could turn around and leave. And do we want to open
Absolutely.
the door for that, or is that something, because I know in other departments, we don't pay, whether it's parks to go get a, associate or bachelor's degree, other certifications, or it's streets, or I'm wondering if this is open the door that we're going to set a standard, and how is it equitable in one department and not another? Because 3 people at 35,000 is almost $12,000 per person.
I'm gonna have Drew
Except
come up.
it's
Drew's
expensive.
behind you here.
Except this is
I just-
complete.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead,
I'm
Mike.
just curious what, I think it comes out to like 12,000 per person or close to it. What does that mean? Years? Is it a 1-year program, 2-year?
Roughly 9 months.
Okay,
That 12,000 is probably going to consist of backfill for coverage for overtime if we need to cover for when they're gone. It's for, the school itself is about 9,000, if I remember right. It's like a 9-month program.
okay.
And it's a 2-year program they made for paramedics that's, kind of,
Sure.
I'm actually okay with this training.
So am I. And I think we're sitting here worrying about the parks needs to get a bachelor's degree. This is critical. I want somebody who's in that ambulance who knows what they're doing.
Well, and
Well,
we're losing,
it's not so
we're
much-
losing funds right now
Exactly.
by having to outsource that to other cities.
Exactly.
My concern only is, guys, is that we go through it with the police, right? Sometimes we train them, and then, like, again, we're a training ground. I just want us to have processes in place that we can kind of protect ourselves, right?
Well, I think that's
That's
what
what he
Scott's
explained.
explained, as
He
far
already
as
Well,
the,
explained
they-
that.
Well, then good,
Right.
we're explaining it.
Tina has a comment.
I just want to make us aware that we do have them sign the contracts, and there's a prorated amount for how long they stay if they owe it. But we kind of got lucky with Hayden in that Lyndon agreed to pay that as part of his sign-on bonus, right?
Yep.
If by chance they left in a year and they owed a lot of money, we're only gonna get what their last check is worth, right?
Sure.
We're not gonna be able to go collect a lot of it. So as long as we're aware that there is a risk there, then we're fine, right? I just wanna make sure that we know that we're not gonna dock their, we're not gonna go to the next employer and garnish their wages
Yeah.
for the remainder of the money that they owe. We're not gonna do that.
And that's what I wanted out out front, right? Just
I mean,
those concerns.
And I didn't say our Parks Department or any other department needs to require a bachelor's degree. I didn't say that. I'm saying is opening the door, and how is this equitable to other departments who have needs and certifications and degrees that need to be met? And where do we, is this an annual thing? So if people know, I mean, are we going?
Well, this
Is
is
this a
this is a
new-
one-time cost.
Well,
and
but how can it be one time? And so is it just for these 3, and then anyone else who comes on doesn't get that same opportunity?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, the thing is, we haven't done this in the past. So the fair and equitable thing is a fair discussion. I mean, it is something that.
Well, it's, I mean, if
but
we're doing it.
we need We need these three right now,
We need
That's
to
right.
train people.
right? We may not need it in a year or 2 years. So we're willing to say, hey, in order to help the city right now with our need, right now we're paying a lot of money to other cities. Let's pay this, let's train them. Hopefully they'll stay, they may not. That's just part of
I
the
think
business,
I think-
right?
Paying other cities.
Well, no, sorry, we're not, we're not paying other cities.
We lose revenue.
We're losing revenue when we have to rely on other cities.
Well, if we're going to go down this road, I think it's only to our benefit to put it into some kind of a plan or something says, because if we're going to do it and then someone else comes in a year and says, well, you did it, right? Are we just going to say, well, it's on a one-off basis or a three-off basis? I think we need to be organized and say, if we're going to have future needs in the police or the fire department, are we going to do this or are we not, right? Are we going to try and step up and say, we believe in our police and fire, and this is what we're willing to do? Or are we going to say, well, it's just a one-off thing?
But
We'll-
Eric,
we'll
do you
see.
want it to be an ongoing?
Well, we've had this ongoing situation, right? We have problems filling positions in the police department, right? A hard time. And I'm not sure about the fire, that you can educate me more on that. But do we need to step up to a certain degree and say, we're willing to do to a certain degree, right? I don't know what that means right now.
On an ongoing basis.
On an ongoing basis, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I know, to go back. It's hard, because when I first started, cities always pay for the medics to go to school. That's just that's what they did. Cities, you'd hire, get on, they paid for your medic, and that Orem paid for me to go to paramedic school. That's just what cities did. That's just how it's, as time went on, we had a lot more people to choose from. There's a lot more people going to school, and it got to the point where we were able to just hire paramedics. We're testing, you got to be a paramedic to test. That has shifted in the past 4 to 5 years to where our pool of people to choose from has gone down a lot. We've lost a lot of people to other states. We've lost, just with the things going on around, it's just, Utah has been real good. They've gone up, and with our retirement changing, with the system changing, stuff like that, we've lost a lot of people. So our pool for us to pick from has been pretty slim, good or bad. But so these last 3 guys that we picked up were not paramedics, but they were the best guys out of, we actually had a couple paramedics that tested, but they just, for us, they didn't meet that goal that we wanted. And these 3 did. They're real good they're real good EMTs, they're good employees. I don't see them going anywhere, but you can't promise anything. You know, you can't say, they're not going anywhere. We try to make an environment here where they want to stay, they want to do stuff. Hopefully we can portray that. That doesn't work all the time. People are just never happy sometimes. They like to move, but, we try to make that happen. But it's a chance. It is. I'm not saying it's and you don't want it to happen all the time. Hopefully, it may change in the future to where we get more people going to school and they come back. But right now, it's just in a weird time.
Well, and that's why I want to do a one-time deal. My recommendation would be not to set up something that would be an expectation. If we're in a circumstance now where it makes sense for us to do it, then let's do this. But I would also like the individual to pay some money to do this. I don't want the city to pay 100% of this cost. That's
So what do you recommend on that, Scott?
Well, that's what Dave and I are working on.
Okay.
We haven't really settled on what that looks like. But again, what's in front of you is the full cost. It's the cost to backfill, because if we need overtime funds when these guys are going to be at school, and so they can't take a shift, yet we're still paying them. We've done it in the police. And I would say that it's a little different for police and fire with the level of this training than I would say for, maybe for public works or for parks. But generally speaking, I mean, this is what's being proposed. If the council feels uncomfortable with that, I mean, we don't have to do it. Our guys can still function. I mean, what Dave Thomas explained 2 weeks ago was that he has to have a paramedic on each ambulance run. And if we run into shifts with some of our part-timers who are not paramedics, then there could be an opportunity where we have a stacked call and we have to call in another city to come in and take that call. So and those stacked calls happen even if we have a full complement of paramedics. But that's the idea, that there could be some lost revenue there. Now, is that substantial enough? It's probably substantial enough that this investment would make it worth our while. Is it fair? Maybe not for those that put themselves through, but I mean, these are decisions that we make as a city to say this is the level of service we want to provide. And
As
again,
I
if
understand it, it's potentially costing us about 10,000 a month.
I don't think it's that much, and I know that,
Potentially, it's between 4 and 5 calls a month.
Well, I know, but potentially we could say it's 25 if we don't really know. We could
Well,
say
no,
it's-
there's,
Well,
That-
it
that
depends
was-
the
that was-
degree of a call. They all vary.
that's right. But
but
4
that
to
was-
4 to
that-
5, 4 to 5 calls, missed calls per month, could be roughly 10,000.
But is that even happening?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
well,
Well,
but,
then I'd like
but
to see
this
the
is,
numbers.
sorry, and Chief Thomas isn't here, but that was July. I mean, that was 1 month where it was 10 grand. I don't think it's now, to go, we need to go back and do our research to figure out, because the stacked calls, regardless of if we have paramedics or not, I mean, there's gonna be some stacked calls regardless if everybody's a paramedic or not, just because we've got 2 ambulances out and we get another call. Or we're on a fire and we have all the guys, whether they're fighting a fire and our ambulance is engaged and then we have to call in another city. There's gonna be stacked calls of some level, no matter how we do this. Because the other idea is, okay, we now add another shift or another, 2 full-time employees or another full-time employee for each shift. Well, that starts getting into the cost of about $200,000 a year, which it's cheaper for us just to do the stat calls
Right.
than it is to hire another full-timer for each position. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
I look at this as an investment.
So I guess my question is, and I know if police and fire are completely different, first responders are completely different. The service they provide, what they do is different than other departments, and I understand that. So let's just preface it with that, because they do have, I mean, their job is different. They have a different skill set. They need different experience and certification, so I understand that. But if there was an employee in any other department that came and said, I want to further my education by going to school and getting either like an associate or a certification or a degree, what would we tell them?
so if it's a certificate, then yeah, we pay for it.
How
So,
much?
Not this much.
Was it,
To like for a sewer certificate
is there
or
like an
something.
amount? Was it, I think I heard $1,000 per person per year or semester, or how much do we give them?
Well, that's tuition reimbursement. So if somebody's going to get a degree, then we do have tuition reimbursement. Is it $1,000 a year?
Per semester?
Per year.
And that is a 2-year commitment. That if they leave prior to 2 years, they have to pay back.
Okay. So if an
But once
employee from
again,
another,
Once again, if payback is the last check. 'cause you don't-
Pretty much, yeah.
within
don't
2
sue 'em.
years?
But it's if they leave us prematurely. But if you're talking about like getting a sewer certificate or a water operator certificate, we do pay for that. They're not $9,000.
So there's equity there. I mean, if they're required to have it, just like a paramedic, we're paying for that, Sid.
It's just, this
It
is a
would be
more
normal
intense
business practice
training
to do
than.
So Scott,
than that. Yeah.
the reason I brought this all up is I want us to be, right, I believe in this, right? And that's why I want us to be smart about it. And are we just gonna say one-off? Because I hope that these 3 guys, long-term, right, stay here for a very, very long time. And so I just want us to have some kind of a semblance of a plan in both departments to say Pleasant Grove is the place to work for, and this is why, and this is the council and the mayor believes in that. And so, and that's kind of why I asked the question, right, and I don't want you or chief getting in trouble with the other guys in your department saying, hey, we're going to do it just for these 3 guys.
Yeah.
And you guys that paid for your own.
I think cities have done that. They've done both, so it's not like it's a weird thing. But the only thing, when you talk about this double call thing, I don't want to get in between this whole thing, but what we're having trouble right now with not having all the guys medics right now, we may have 6 people on staff, full staff during the day, but yet I've only got 2 medics or 3 medics, so I can really only staff 1 ambulance and 1 engine because I don't have enough medics to be in the AM. That's where some of the stack stuff's gonna come from. So by getting these guys to school, getting them back, that gives me a full crew, full shift pretty much every time. Right now, we're augmenting that pretty good with our part-time guys. We're relying on a lot of our good part-time medics that we have. We have a great part-time staff. But that's kind of what's happening right now. When we're fully staffed with our own guys and the part-time guys, not having that extra medic sometimes makes it so we end up having to close down an ambulance because I don't have enough medics to put in.
Well,
That's kind of where that
So
comes
it's
from.
like, this
so.
discussion's not going away, right? Our daytime population is going to continue to grow. And as we infill, we're going to have this discussion all the time. That's why I'm just saying we have to be smart.
Well, but if the market changes I mean, I think that's part of the issue is the market's changed, and so now, when we have an opening, it's not as deep. The people applying for positions. We used to be able to get people that were paramedics, and we required it to hire them. And in the last few years, with how the economy's been,
Yeah, that's why, yeah.
we're getting, and like they said, I mean, we're also trying to build something here to find the people that are the right fit.
And they're great guys.
Yeah.
I mean, they were a great
And-
find. I mean,
And that's where I feel like we need to give our fire chief and deputy chief credit, that they're trying to find the right fit as opposed to, hey, just because a guy's a medic, we're going to hire him. That's not always the wise move. So this is a remedy. And again, I'd prefer it's a one-off. That will be our plan, will be for this situation. We'll have a contract that will outline this stuff, and we'll take care of it for these three. But I don't want to create a policy that says we're going to do this every single time, because I don't feel like we're going to have to do this every single time. And whether it's fair or not for new people coming on, that's a decision that they're going to have to make and we're going to have to make. Because if they come on and they're not a medic and we're not interested in paying for them to go to the medic school, then either we don't hire them or we do, and then they're going to have to pay for themselves. And again, I would like us to set up something where they have some skin in the game. They're going to pay a portion of this. And what that number is and how much we can recoup in their last check, I mean, that's probably what's going to guide how much that's going to be. But, this is one way to solve a problem, because we don't have to do this. We can say, we're not going to use this money here. And what's going to happen is these guys, either they'll put themselves through, because it benefits them in their career in the long run. They'll put themselves through medic school, which is great. Or they'll just keep operating like us, and then we might miss a call every once in a while, a stat call, because we don't have enough medics. So that's what's in front of us.
Any further discussion? We're off here. Any further discussion on the budget summary?
Can we use the CARE money for replacing the tennis courts?
We can, we just don't have any, at least right now.
I know we discussed in the past, like bonding for certain projects. Would this be one that we could use that other money towards other capital projects?
sorry, what was the question?
Can we use the
Use CARE money for
200,000?
the tennis courts.
And bond for all of them to get done?
Because this is a good point, Sid, and it's probably worthy of discussion. The issue is how quickly do we want those repaired? If it's next spring, then we need to allocate this 200,000 of general fund, and let's do it. If we're willing to wait a couple of years or maybe 3 years, then we can use CARE money. The issue with the CARE money this year is we used it already for Discovery and Downtown Park. So we borrowed ourselves money. Now we're paying ourselves back with this year's proceeds. Then next year's proceeds, so starting next summer, should be another close to $400,000 available for the city to make decisions. Now, we do have an obligation on certain things that we promised our residents, which was some batting cages and a water feature out at the swim pool and some of those things. But if we do that, that will push that project at least a year. If we want to get it done now, then we can do that. But it is eligible for CARE. We're just saying this is a timeliness issue. But if
Let's fix the two.
yeah.
Let's fix the two, and then. we gotta figure out
well,
how
and to that point, there's still 4 more that are eventually going to need to be fixed. And so that could be part of the long-term plan with the CARE money. Now, we also have some soccer fields that we have on the radar, and that project's probably a $2 million project, which would take all the rest of the CARE money if we use CARE to fund that whole thing.
You're talking pipe plant?
Yeah, pipe plant, 4 or 5 soccer fields out there, 10 acres worth of soccer fields, restrooms, that type of stuff. So, I don't know. Part of it is we were having some issues out there. I know I talked to a few of you. I felt a sense of urgency that we needed to do something. That's why I recommended putting this on here. But if there's not a sense of urgency on those 2 courts, we can hold that and wait and use
My
CARE
feeling
money.
is let's fix the 2, because those 2 are bad.
They're the 2 worst ones, 2 biggest.
And then let's come up with a plan, to Sid's point. Let's come up with a plan to fix the rest of them,
Because my gut tells me we're probably not going to do 4 tennis courts 4 more. Every time I drive by, I see more pickleballers out there than I do see tennis players.
Well, I was gonna bring that up. I mean,
Yeah.
I think when we fix the two,
Yeah,
I think we ought to paint them for pickleball as well.
Yes, correct.
yes, no, that's our intent, as we've talked about that. And part of it is, once we get our pickleball courts out on Locust at Veterans Park, we'll see if they're still gonna be coming and using our tennis courts for pickleball, now that
Probably.
we have our own facility. And they probably will.
Yeah.
And if they will, then that's, I think, the message to us, that, okay, let's do 2 more tennis courts, but
two
maybe,
more and maybe four.
maybe pickleball courts, another 4 or 6 plex out there.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, that's kind of future planning stuff as we go. But does that answer your question, Sid?
Yeah, that was the whole point of the care tax. We don't have to keep taking money from capital projects.
Uh-huh,
The general fund is to pay for items like this.
yep, correct.
So I mean, that's a lot of money that could be used for other areas in the city, and we have a revenue stream to pay for it. May not be immediately, but we do have a revenue stream.
Yeah, I agree.
Probably-
It's a great project for the care tax, but like I said, it's probably 1 year, at least 1 year, maybe 2 years before we'd be able to replace those courts.
Okay.
So, well, and I don't want to leave Sid high and dry. I don't know if anybody else feels the same way.
Well, I mean,
about that.
we went through this discussion last meeting, Sid, and off the thing there, and then everybody says, no, we want the tennis courts.
Yeah.
I told everybody, well, if you don't want to, let's take the tennis courts out. But the majority of the council said, no, we want the tennis courts. So I don't know why we're revisiting that
Because I'd like
again.
them fixed, but I'd like them paid for with care funds instead of taking
But we don't-
$200,000 out of
We
the general
don't
fund.
have enough care funds.
Then I would rather wait. I think there's other needs in the city besides 2 tennis courts that cost $200,000 and can be paid for with a different revenue stream.
Well, I think
mean,
you're in the
I-
minority then, so that's,
And that's fine. I'm only one vote. So
Okay.
I'm just expressing my opinion because Scott asked.
Scott,
Yeah.
if, let's say, we have 1 minute here, you can answer this in. If we took that 200, what would you use it for?
We would send it back to our department heads and ask them what other needs that they might have for capital. I could see probably some vehicles, probably, I mean, those are some of the things that are pretty consistent. No, I mean, there's needs. I mean, generally when and I got to give our department heads credit, when we ask them what they need, they give us what they need. They don't give me like 900 items. But there are more needs out there than what we have.
They're all
there's-
smiling at you right now, Scott.
Are they?
No, no.
What about the rekeying of the library? You have nothing down there for that?
No, that's a COVID project, so that's outside of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you don't have anything
Yeah,
gonna go?
no, so we have a list of COVID projects that aren't on here.
Oh, okay.
That
All
are
right.
different, because initially the projects you had in front of you were all gonna be general fund.
Okay.
And so we separated some of them COVID. The library one, we pulled off fairly quickly.
Okay.
And so, but no, because we're gonna redo the library, city hall, community development, rekey everything there, make sure that we have the fobs now to have a secure system there, so. Yeah, that will be a COVID project.
you have questions for Scott?
Just one question maybe for Dion. Dion, I know you've painted pickleball on the 2 courts.
Just one.
The eastern, southeastern course.
Yeah, southeastern side, yeah. Is there a plan to paint the other 3 courts?
I think we kind of did that, kind of a test, see how much use it would get. To be honest with you, I haven't seen, and I'm not out there a lot at night, but during the day, there's not a lot of pickleball, it's all tennis.
Trust me, there's plenty.
I think it was actually citizens that painted.
Just, and I'm gonna, there are, people are painting them on the street, which we
Yes,
don't
they
want.
Is that in your, where did I see
I
that?
am
Todd,
not
are you talking about
I
your
am not, I am
cul-de-sac?
not,
I saw
I'm
that
not having
somewhere.
this conversation. But people are, they're painting it on the streets, and so in order to protect our streets, let's if we need to paint more pickleball courts on the existing tennis courts,
Yeah.
let's try to do that.
Yeah, the only danger is then the tennis players sometimes will get a little upset when the pickleballers take over.
Well,
the
survival
courts,
of the fittest, we'll see who's stronger.
Yeah, if volleyball can go on a basketball court, for heaven's sakes, pickleball can go on a tennis court.
but- No, we can do that. We
All
can,
right,
we
let's
can
just
put
make sure
those
that's
lines
the
on.
All I know is I went up again to the Cedar Hills Park, the one up there in Newen, and it's like a madhouse, the pickleball courts.
Yeah, and they have 6 courts up there. I'm glad we're doing 8.
I thought I was gonna see a couple fights because who was next?
It
right?
doesn't matter where you go in the evenings, there's a line.
They're all over.
Orem, Vineyard,
cool.
Pro Orem, it's,
Yeah, yeah.
And the one that's there, or the ones that are there at the Discovery Park are used every night.
No, every time I drive by First East heading home, and it's in the evening,
Yes.
there are people there.
Yep.
No, I don't see as much during the day, but absolutely
Well, I
in
don't
the
think they
evening.
want to go out on 100 degrees
No.
and play pickleball.
no.
But, and, I mean, recently, like, the tennis court there, the one we're talking about replacing, I don't see as many people on there as I do pickleball. I mean, it's just the evolution of things, I think.
Yep.
But that's my commentary. It's
Great.
not
Thanks,
based in
Scott.
any study. Okay,
Okay, thank you, Scott. Now, we will take a break here at 5:30 and for meeting. Ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a
Second.
second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.